Look, we'll get to some of the Anzac Day commemorations very, very shortly, because I know it will be a special day for you in particular. But first of all, let's talk about the geopolitical situation that exists right now between Australia and, of course, China, what's going on in the South China Sea, and, of course, the controversy attached to how China has handled this coronavirus pandemic, and the allegations, certainly coming from the United States and Australia, that both China and the WHO, the World Health Organization, were very, very slow off the mark when it came to fessing up on just how infectious this disease was.
Peter, good evening, and you're quite right. And here we sit in the middle of a coronavirus isolation. Yet before coronavirus isolation, we had the fires. And before that, of course, we had a strategic environment that you're talking about that in many ways was more unpredictable before the fires and before corona than we've seen since the end of the Second World War. We're here today, we will be here tomorrow to commemorate the acts of our soldiers. And the point that I like to make is that the strategic environment that creates conflict, creates wars, creates challenges and creates competition was pretty savage prior to the fires and to the outbreak of coronavirus. And when we come out of this, it will still be there, and it'll probably, as a result of the economic collapse, it'll probably be exacerbated. The tensions will be quite exacerbated. You spoke about China. I'm not overly keen about getting wrapped around the axle talking about who did what to who at this stage of the game, but at some stage we must see whether the World Health Organization is fit. We must ask ourselves, where do these things come from and who did what? But at this stage, our leadership is doing well to get us through there. My concern is that we run the risk of addressing the issues that come out of coronavirus in relation to the strategic environment merely as economic issues. And I like to talk about security. Our leadership within the government is talking about self-reliance and sovereignty. At the moment, China seems to be on the edge of conflict with Vietnam, with the Philippines, with Malaysia. It seems to be definitely in a very tense situation with the United States. There are ships which are sailing through various oceans to our north, which are primed for war and practiced for war. So, Peter, it's not a good situation. And if we think that coronavirus following the fires is the worst thing that can happen to us, that's not the case. We didn't predict this. And those that say, well, you know, the chance of conflict is so small, we shouldn't prepare for it. Well, I'll bet we're preparing for the pandemic next time round.
Now, Jim, you're one of the most decorated soldiers in this country. You've commemorated Australia Anzac Day in Canberra. You've commemorated it at the Kokoda track, Charleville, Baghdad, Jakarta, Queanbeyan. Tomorrow, obviously, you'll be commemorating it at home. I want to ask you this question about the mental health of diggers tomorrow. Often diggers use tomorrow as an opportunity to catch up with their mates, play a little bit of two-up, you know, do all the things that mateship and the Australian way brings us together on that particular day. Are you concerned that, you know, some of your brethren, some of your colleagues and your mates will feel a little bit like it's not the traditional tomorrow?
Well, I think people will, but I think we'll get through it. We have been through this once before in 1919. We didn't have the connectivity that we've got nowadays. Can you imagine the people who came out of 1914-18 war, the trauma that they were subjected to and that they carried into the 20s and the 30s? Our young soldiers today are no different. Their trauma may not have been as pronounced, but we have mental problems within our veteran community that are very concerning. And not only that, the fact that we're going to be denied our day of the year in certain circumstances and to a certain respect can only work to impact this. We say that the lockdown that we're facing, the isolation we're facing at the moment is going to cause mental problems for people for a long time, and I think that's quite true. and that will be mental problem on top of mental problems in certain vulnerable areas. Veterans are certainly one, Peter, and I am concerned about it.
How do you think the Prime Minister and the National Cabinet have pulled the nation together in this time of crisis, Jim?
I think it's been quite astounding. As someone with my military background, I'm paid to think of extreme scenarios. I certainly didn't think of this one, Peter. But I'm paid to think about what a nation does when it faces extremes and when it faces conflict. And to see the way that we have come together, and I think that the government that we had learned a lot of lessons out of how to work out of the fires. And we made certain errors in that, but we finally got a good response to the fires up, and I know individuals are talking about, some individuals are still complaining. I got a phone call from the well-known town of Cobargo, and their clean-up's gone ahead down in Batlow, and Cobargo's had all their properties assisted. But on top of that, they've got the coronavirus coming. So the government, I think, learned a lot out of that, and the way that the Prime Minister and the key ministers are playing this, I think, is just second to none. I stand in absolute amazement at how well we're doing, and I see, even the people that would not normally assist us and support us, I'm getting comments from who are being brought around. Some members of my family, even Peter, down in Victoria, in the People's Republic down there, they're even saying nice things about ScoMo, which is very good.
Yeah, there's no doubt at all. He had a little bit of a hiccup, I suppose you could say, when he went off to Hawaii and missed the boat on the bushfires. But I think, and not just the Prime Minister, I mean, Brendan Murphy, the Chief Medical Officer, and his team, yes. Josh Frydenberg, Greg Hunt, I mean, it has been an exemplary performance. And, of course, the state and territory premiers and leaders have also combined very well. Before we go, Jim, how will you be commemorating tomorrow? Will you be in the driveway at 6 a.m. like probably most Australians will be tomorrow morning?
Oh, I certainly will. I live in a rural area, so our closest neighbours are a considerable distance away, so it's going to be hard to have an effect. I might take the cars out and park them out there and turn their headlights on. But that's the kind of thing that I think we should do, and we'll do it in a novel way. We've been preparing for Anzac Day as an office using hashtag Anzac at Home on my Facebook, which has been picked up by the Department of Veteran Affairs. And we've been featuring one person each day. So I've been thinking about it now for about 20 or 25 days. And it's been fabulous. Tomorrow is a day when I think we should think about the unknown soldier and the masses of soldiers and sacrifices in general.
Senator Jim Molan, always a pleasure to have you on Sky News across Australia. Keep up the good work, Jim.